First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us. This is the inaugural BSV Quarterly Town Hall event. We will hold these once a quarter just to wrap up the things that have progressed in the most recent quarter, as well as take a view out to some of the benchmarks and the targets for the following quarter. My name is Brett Banfe, and I'm the head of community here at the BSV Association. I want to thank you very much for joining us. We're excited to kick this off. It is a new initiative that we're taking on, and I want to thank you, the loyal viewer, you, the loyal listener, and I want to invite you to continue to participate with these events and to continue to participate with our in-person events. We are going to begin with a presentation from Cyrille Albrecht, who is our managing director, and we will follow that with a presentation from HandCash. Part of the format for these quarterly town halls will be to present some of what is innovative in the network with a special guest. So we're very excited to have HandCash be our first guest presenter. We will follow that up with a presentation from our team leads and our various value streams. And following that, we will have a question and answer period. You are also free to enter questions into the chat, and we can be answering those while the presenters are speaking if you have any urgent questions. I also invite you to reach out if you don't want to ask your questions at the end of the event, but you still want to ask them. You can reach out to us via email at info@bsvblockchain.org, and you can reach out to me directly at brett.banfe@bsvblockchain.org, and I'll put those emails into the chat. Without further ado, thank you so much for being here. I would like to present Cyrille Albrecht, our managing director.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Brett. So I would like to use the opportunity. We have started 2024. So I'm using the opportunity to show you a little bit what we have achieved last year. Obviously, I would like to mention especially the good things, the highlights, but there were also some challenges. So I also would like to have a quick heads up about that. And obviously then looking forward 2024, and my colleagues will go much more into details. So for me, it's more setting the scene. So as you can see, 2023, obviously our two strategic projects, Terranode and Stewardship, this is a big step forward what we have achieved. So let's start with Terranode. We continued Terranode project with a small team. We designed the architecture and also, let's say, the design. We have done already some proof of concepts, etc. So we did achieve big steps, more than later from Siggy. But we also moved forward on the stewardship. This is more about alert system, network operational center, also non-technical aspects like this term and condition agreement, which a miner needs to follow. These are all new things which have already been released or will be released very soon. It's also cool to mention that we created or implemented new products, new, let's say, enable services, tools. I'm just mention here a few examples like Line, SP Wallet, Arc. Also here, my colleagues will go deeper. What I would like to mention here, obviously, is that we also try to integrate much more deeper into the ecosystem. So we created Slack channels. We have expert groups for all the examples which I mentioned before. So for us, it's important to hear also people outside the association. Obviously, not only hearing, also we use the colleagues, companies to help us for implementation, testing, QAs, which obviously will also share more knowledge, increase adoption. So these are all very nice side effects. Moving on, we also did a rebranding. I think it was mid of the year. As you know, we went from Bitcoin association to BSV Blockchain. Also, this has been completed. It includes also a new website, and also we have many more details about adoption. That Martin will go deeper later on. Then we did also an ecosystem analysis about vendors, about use cases. You have the link here in the slide deck, so you're happy if you go there. So you get a much better overview. Who is involved in this ecosystem? How many use cases currently are running, including also some details. We did this ecosystem analysis based on the Gartner structure. Our idea was to use the Gartner structure because we also try to be integrated to the Gartner, let's say, technology stack. So we would like that BSV becomes an official blockchain in the Gartner tool stack. So when they talk about blockchain, that also BSV will be listed in the future. Then outreach, we will hear that later on. We did, let's say, we split it more in a private and public sector. The public sector has been relaunched. We will hear from my colleague Nico and also the other participants how they do it, where they are, who is working on it. So that's, let's say, the big change which we had in 2023 about outreach. Then education, new courses released on our BSV Academy. We had the Philippines and also on our side, we redefined the BSV strategy. You can find it on the website. These are just a few examples of some very good highlights which we have achieved last year. We also had some challenges, network challenges, let's call it like that. And for us, definitely it's clear, a lessons learned. We need to focus more on standardization on all layers, let's say like that. So that will be also a topic for 2024. We also will include, we will release a new node generation, Terra node, as we all know. And we will also focus much more on the network topology from an education perspective and information, sharing knowledge, etc. So that's in a nutshell what happened in 2023. Looking forward to 2024. I will not go into the details, as I already mentioned, my colleagues will do it. So definitely the strategic projects, they will go live. So this is a very important year for all of us. And as I already mentioned, standardization, education on the network, here a lot of other, we have still a lot of gaps here where we would like to focus, which brings me to my last topic. We will also focus on development tools. So together with nChain, we have started now an analysis, and we would like to identify on all levels also where are the biggest gap. On certain things we are already working. So for instance, on the standardization of libraries or other aspects, we are already on it, but there are still quite a few gaps where we need to close. So that's also a big topic for 2024. There's many more things, but we will hear that in a few minutes. And before I hand over to my BA colleagues, I'm happy now to have a guest speaker. As we already heard, HandCash will provide us an update from their perspective, and therefore I would like to hand over to the colleagues.
Thank you very much, Cyrille. And with that, I would like to introduce Rafael Jimenez. Rafa will lead a presentation called Bitcoin Wallets at Scale. Thank you, Rafa.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for having me today. I want to talk today about Bitcoin wallets at scale, and I want to focus particularly in the mindset behind. I'm happy to, obviously dig into the details of infrastructure and software components, whatever has to come. But I think it's important to talk about what is the mindset or what are the requirements that wallets at scale should follow moving forward, because there's no, if we can move to the next slide, please. Right, so this is the main thing. After a few months working on Bitcoin, you realize that you have the white paper. It describes what is the mining process, what is the consensus process, but there's no instructions about how to build the Bitcoin wallet. You have some references about SPV, but there is really there's no guidelines. There's nothing. Like you're just alone. Of course, you have in the original version of Bitcoin, you have a wallet, but that is just, if you really pay attention and you have some experience looking at software, Satoshi already made a huge effort trying to put all the pieces together, and it was just a proof of concept to show, how everything could work. But of course, that is not what we can call production software, and of course, it's far from something scalable. Next slide, please. Next.
It's running a bit slow, but it can. All right.
Okay. Yeah, there's this meme thing. Was trying to make a joke. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, there's no instructions. But I think that is not really a problem, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is just software. And I think it's a mistake thinking that Bitcoin is something different when it comes to software. I mean, software is software. It's a system. You have requirements, you have users, and you have to cover all of that. So the idea here is, what if we just follow the software principles that we will follow with any other system? What are we able to put together? And we have, of course, the tools and everything available out there to create a scalable Bitcoin wallet. So what I want to expose today and share with you is the requirements based on my experience and the experience of my team working on Bitcoin wallets for over 5 years now. We serve over 100,000 users, and we have a daily volume of $100,000. So what I want to say with this is, it's a big journey. Of course, we made mistakes, which I don't want you to make again, which is one of the main points. And also, it's a big responsibility, because there's a lot of users, there's a lot of money, and you don't want to make mistakes. And also, another thing that I want to mention is, there's a difference between having a hobby project when you're playing with Bitcoin, you want to work on some proof of concept, and when you realize that the proof of concept was very cool, it was nice, but now you want to create a business on top of that. So your selection of requirements, costs, and everything, it changes. It's not you just have the freedom to put together whatever you want. No, you have to be way more specific. So to me, the main requirements, first of all, it does not run a Bitcoin node. I'm not sure if this is controversial at 2024, but the main reason for that is very simple: it's a huge cost, and as Bitcoin keeps scaling, the cost is going to be bigger. I think this is very simple. You can talk to anyone who decided to run a node to maintain their infrastructure. It's really a pain in the ass. Is the cost of the infrastructure, and is the cost of the human cost, because you require people to be specialized on running that infrastructure, maintaining everything. And basically, it's not necessary. You don't really need to run a Bitcoin node to provide a wallet. So that's why part of the requirements is it does not run Bitcoin node. So that means what it needs to store is the UTXOs, which are the spendable coins for the wallet. Of course, that makes sense. You will want to store the transaction history so you can offer, all the interaction in the blockchain for that wallet. And the other ingredient that you will need to combine are the block headers, which are basically enough to verify any Bitcoin transaction. So that means just with these smaller pieces of information, which very important to mention in case it's not obvious enough, you will just care about the UTXOs transactions of your wallets. You don't care about the entire network, you just care about your users, right? So your business scales independently of the Bitcoin network. If you have 10 users, you need to store very little information. If you have 1 million users with an average of 100 transactions per user per day, you have to scale based on that, but also makes sense because as you're making more money as a business, you can afford to maintain the cost. Then there's another very basic ingredient, which is we need some kind of service that is allowing the wallet to broadcast transactions. So our main interaction with the network, with the miners network, is just to broadcast transactions, right? The rest, we will try to explain a bit more why that is the main interaction, and there's almost no more interactions needed. And then the second one is some kind of dependency or interaction, so we can keep our wallet or our system updated about the block information. Because as I mentioned before, this is the ingredient that allows us to verify any Bitcoin transaction. So these are the main ingredients to me. And then there's two things. I would say there's room for both of them. The first one is another dependency or another service that is providing us indexed transactions. That one, I think over time, we are seeing how you don't want to have that in your system. You can, but if you're really thinking in the medium and long term, I will not recommend you because of the following reason: the cost. So is it possible to create an indexer for terabyte blocks? Yes, it's possible. Just think, if Google can index the stupid amount of information that they have, of course we can do the same with Bitcoin. But what is the cost of that? And I want to always go back to the cost of things because we're trying to create scalable systems and scalable businesses. So if the cost is very expensive, obviously it's not going to make sense for us. I think everyone here knows about any service who had dependencies with indexers and how it has some downtimes or some problems because it's not easy. So this is why I will try to avoid relying on indexers. And the alternative solution is having peer-to-peer communication with other wallets, right? So there's basically two different approaches when you want to send transactions to a different service. Approach number one, wallet 2 provides the Bitcoin address to wallet 1. Wallet 1 creates the transaction and sends the transaction to the miners. So wallet 2 has to be constantly scanning, using indexer, whatever you want to call it, to find out that wallet 1 sent that transaction to wallet 2. The peer-to-peer approach is there's a full interaction between wallet 1 and wallet 2 about what is the address, but eventually both services have to agree on the requirements for the transaction, and most importantly, both are aware that this new transaction exists. So at some point after this agreement, the transaction is sent to the Bitcoin network, but both services are already aware that the transaction exists. So you don't have to rely on indexers because you already know that that transaction exists. This is why peer-to-peer communication, to me, it's a main ingredient to make your life easier when it comes to scaling a wallet. Next, please. Yeah. So if we put everything together, I think there's a very clear separation of layers. You have the miners, and then we could have in the wallet all of these modules, transaction broadcast, which it could include MAPI, TAPI, ARC, whatever else is to come. The block data fetch, which can include, again, any solution that it's basically being able to provide you the data headers. You could just use something very simple as the Watson Chain API, for example. Then transaction signing, which it could involve any library that you consider for signing. You can use also one single private key. You can use threshold signatures. You can use whatever you want, but basically you need something that it's signing transactions. And we could also include assembling transaction, which means selecting inputs and outputs based on the criteria for the transaction that you want to build. Then we can store, obviously, transactions, block information, and the UTXOs. And finally, this, I would say big, because I want to remark it, the peer-to-peer communication, which is what enables our wallet to communicate with other wallets. So this is, to me, the ideal modules that should be included in a Bitcoin wallet. So if we actually are a bit more specific, the wallet won't be interacting with the miners directly, but miners or maybe some other third-party service will provide an additional layer. So the first thing is, miners don't want to be directly exposed to you. Like, this is some basic security principles that miners try to follow, at least. And the second is because the Bitcoin, the mining node is not, the primary function is not to provide you services. So it's not going to suit you very well. So basically you want to create some indirection, some abstraction, something that is more suitable for wallets. And this is the additional layer. So it can be provided by either miners or any other, third-party service or third-party organization who decides to provide the service. But also important to say here, I'm not gonna go about this, but just think about this additional layer has a cost and someone has to pay for it. Full stop. Yeah, next, please. Right, so based on these requirements, they're basically, I would say, two main architectures that I've seen being used over time for creating wallets. So one of them, next, please. One of them is the client-only architecture, where basically everything, over 90% of the software components run on the user device, which could be, it could be the phone, could be browser, but also it should be, why not, IoT, consoles, PS4, PS5. It should be everything, right? So basically one of the approaches is we don't need a server. We can run all the software in a single device, and that device will include all the modules that we described before, along with the user interface, of course. So that is approach number one. And approach number two is the client-server architecture, which is another model, very traditional. It will just establish a very clear separation of all the Bitcoin features will be part of the server, and the client will be mainly to provide the UI, interaction with the user, and there will be some mechanism to communicate, obviously, both server and client. So I want to offer some comparison of both different architectures too. I think this is something still a bit controversial. I can say we we had both architectures at some point. We started with the client only.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have 2 more minutes. We need to have a look on the time. You know, you're already over time heavily. So please, sorry for
Okay.
that, but 2 more minutes and then we need to come to an end.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was not aware of the time at all. Yeah, can we move to a table that has all the comparison at the end? Yeah, next. Next. Right. So this is the list of things that I will strongly consider. So being reachable by third parties using popular frameworks. Why? Because we want peer-to-peer communication. So popular frameworks go over not popular frameworks. Of course, you can establish peer-to-peer communication with client-only architectures, but again, popular frameworks. Available 24/7. It does not require to update the software every time for every improvement. Support non-custodial key management or even custodial key management. In some cases, even custodial could be a requirement. Easy to debug and troubleshoot, which is very hard on client side. That's something, again, I will really consider. And then things like leveraging specialized hardware and leveraging specialized storage systems. When you are on the client server side, you have way more freedom for considering those things. And another one I will remark is how easy it is to find qualified professionals. What does it mean? So if I'm having a client-only architecture and I want to create an iOS app, I need someone who is proficient in iOS programming and proficient in Bitcoin. And that's very, very, very hard to find. So if you separate the responsibilities in your system, you can also just focus on finding specific professionals. You can find someone who has knowledge on Bitcoin and scaling systems, and then you have someone who is very good at creating UX. And obviously, you know, that's something very easy that we struggled at some point in our company. So it's something I wanted to share with you. And then wrapping up, just one single thing is someone can come up to different conclusions about requirements or, you know, whatever else. But please do follow software principles, because as you follow them, they exist for a reason. There's decades and decades of professionals coming out to those conclusions. And the benefit is, one of them is establishing common knowledge. So if you do things in a way that everyone is doing them, it's going to be easier to share them, to talk about them, to onboard new members to your team. And then as you're using things that everyone has been using, you know they work, you know they're more reliable, you know they follow security standards. And of course, you're reusing, which allows you to move faster and create a more robust system. So that was pretty much it. I'd like to extend a few things, but maybe next time. So thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rafa. And next we have Jake Jones.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Rafa. That was a great presentation. I want to build off of that, but taking a bit of a step back and looking at things from a big picture perspective and tying them into what we're currently working on at the association. So building off of what Rafa was talking about with wallet infrastructure, where there's two main pieces currently in BSV infrastructure, and that being the SV node and the wallet. And Rafa was talking about how we need an additional layer to separate those two things, because the node, the SV node, is doing too much. And that results in services maybe having to run a listening node, like what's on chain, for example, in order to provide that data. Whereas if we were to pull those things apart and specialize them, we could split that work up and we could streamline it and move information around more efficiently. And so that's really what we're trying to do with Terranode. That's the whole design thesis behind it, is splitting these things out, specializing these different functions of the node and allowing different entities to contribute or participate in running those. And that can be a single entity, or it can be a group of entities running different pieces of it, working together. But the point is, they're working together and splitting those different things up to make things more manageable. The other thing that Terranode is doing, especially with the upcoming test, is we're trying to prove out the thesis that a lot of small transactions with a really low fee is viable and a better alternative to fewer large transactions with a really high fee, like what BTC is doing, or Ethereum, or pretty much all of the other blockchains. And obviously, in order to do that, we need to be able to facilitate timestamping a lot of transactions. And I say timestamping because in order to facilitate that, not only do we need to specialize these different functions, but we also have to focus what a node is doing. And that is just strictly timestamping. So we need to pull all of these different functions out of the node and put them somewhere else. And that's where overlays come in. And the other cool point I should just note about this is really the main selling point of blockchain and BSV is micropayments. And doing things in this way is really the only way we know how to do micropayments viably. And we're trying to prove that out with Terranode with this long test, but it's really the only way to do this. And so moving on to overlays, as Rafa was saying, that overlays provide that layer between the node and wallets. And it can be tied into a wallet. It can be tied into a specific application or a service. And the way it does that is it utilizes transaction types or templates and script. So the wallet is following a specific template. It's still able to transact P2P using SPV, but then the flow of that information goes from the wallet to the overlay upstream from the node, where it can be filtered and logic can do different things with it before it's sent to the node for timestamping. And so that greatly reduces a lot of the traffic going directly to the node, and it allows a lot more control for application developers. So things like service level agreements, for example, if you're trying to work with a large entity and they need an SLA, it's really hard to sell a blockchain when most of your data or most of your interaction is in the hands of node operators. You want control over that. You want to be able to show that you have control over that entity's data or the user data that your application is using. And so by running an overlay in between the nodes that's application specific, you can have users work with that. And sorry, I'm just looking at the time. That went by pretty quickly. And it allows that separation of concerns. So the last thing I just really wanted to touch on is IPv6 and how this all relates. Rafa did a good job talking about the wallets already. But IPv6 comes into play here by adding a larger address space where each entity or wallet can have its own address, which allows for the P2P. It also allows for, as in direct communication. The other feature of IPv6 that isn't really looked at a lot is the fact that it's in base 16 allows us to do some really neat things with hashes, because most hashes, the message digest is also in base 16. So we can use those two things interchangeably in some respects and do some cool things with them, because also due to the additive and the commutative properties of hashes. But just one of the things that we're working on there is multicast, the MNet. So utilizing multicast in between these entities, and you can multicast out to nodes, or hopefully we'll be able to translate that to overlays as well. But having a model where we're able to basically reverse the process that a lot of the big companies like Netflix are using, where they're using multicast to send out to their CDNs, which then provide the content to end users. We're reversing that. So users are sending into these CDNs, which will then multicast out to the node network, or they'll be sending into the overlays, which multicast to the overlay network, and the overlays will then send it to the main blockchain for timestamping. I guess I'm out of time. The identity is the last piece. One thing I'll just quickly mention is we're including the white paper 42 hierarchical key trees and shared secrets in the new libraries project, which is really exciting, and that lays the foundation for attribution trees and being able to isolate personal information and only expose what's needed per interaction, and using a shared secret to add some security and robustness to that.
Thank you so much, Jake. Next, we have a presentation from the utilization value stream, Darren and Thomas. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to also let the stage to Darren to cover more the technical pieces. So my name is Thomas. We cover the utilization value stream with Darren. So the utilization value streams, we focus on open source development of core infrastructure components, such as the SPV wallet, Arc, and we also standardize the different developer tools, and I'm going to cover it later with the different libraries. This year will be a quite important year in the sense that we're going to shift from a monolithic node approach to an overlay approach, as Jake just mentioned. It means that all the applications should stop running their own node and shifting from SV node to running SPV. So one of the feedback that we received, and it's also shared by Rafa from this presentation, is that there was a lack of open source reference implementation wallets. So that's what we are doing. We are developing an open source reference implementation wallet called SPV Wallet, who actually implement the SPV concept and is aligned with different standards discussed within the BRC GitHub repository. So please be involved in the different discussions that which are currently happening within the different BRC GitHub repository, because it helps us to then propose them to the technical standard committee and to elevate them as standards. So the first component is what we call now like client, but like client will be implemented into a new wallet reference implementation called the SPV wallet. We are finalizing the testing phase of the SPV wallet. We should, so the delivery is done, but the release will happen in the coming weeks. This is one of the first components of the new network topology, because it would allow the different wallet providers to use share open source components funded and maintained by the association, hence reducing their costs. So that's something that is quite important for the ecosystem. The other part is Arc. Arc is also the second piece of the new network topology as a replacement of MAPI. We are finalizing the beta phase of Arc, and actually HandCash contributed heavily on providing us very valuable feedbacks. And then we are currently finalizing the beta phase of Arc with testing EV test, and the release of Arc should happen same in the coming weeks as well, as a version 1 version of Arc. So these two components are really important because they are the first pieces of the new network topology. Let's call it the Terranode or overlay network area. So thanks to the SPV wallets implementing the light client toolbox, you will be able to run SPV, and thanks to Arc, you will be able to access the overlay network, Arc being a proto of the next overlay network. And then we also started to scope the overlay network, because that's the layer between the SPV wallet and Terranode. But obviously, we had to wait that the Terranode team finalize the core implementation of Terranode to start to scope overlay network and to decide what features should be part of Terranode and what features should be part of the overlay network. So we are finalizing the scope, and we are starting a proof of concept in Uganda to make sure that we would test the overlay network open source reference implementation. Obviously, the role of the association will not be to run the overlay network, but just to fund and maintain open source overlay network reference implementations. We sent a survey 3 months ago to the entire community, asking them what should we focus on, and one of the feedback was to solve and to unify, consolidate the different libraries of the ecosystem. So we started by unify, consolidate the TypeScript library, which has been delivered last week. We are finalizing the sign-off of the TypeScript library, and then we're going to release soon. We have also started to consolidate the Golang library, and Darren sent a survey yesterday to ask the community which library we should focus on next. So please go on Twitter and answer the survey sent by Darren. That would allow us to continue building developer tools asked by the community. So please reach out to us on the Discord, on the BSV Discord channel, on Twitter, and on Slack for the one of you who are part of the different groups. I'm going to stop here because I want to let enough time to Darren. Sorry, Darren, I talked a lot. So please, Darren, if you want to continue.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Thomas, for those updates. The bulk should be understood there. I wanted to dive into some of the more technical things to reference in the library. So the team that's been putting together the library has done a fantastic job. We started with TypeScript. It's looking really good. We're still in review at the moment, so it's not available yet, but that will soon be available. One thing to mention there is the construction of transactions. The TX builder within the library, it really focuses on SPV. So it's SPV first. And what I mean by that is historically libraries have always dealt with UTXOs and referencing them by TXID and VOUT. Whereas this library takes it a step further, and it allows you to use an entire source transaction as the source of your funds for a transaction. And then all you need to indicate is which output or outputs you want to spend from that source transaction. So each input can then run a script evaluation, and you can actually check the fees that the transaction is paying, and so on and so forth. So there's a little bit more to TX construction within the library. And what that is to encourage is the mindset that the wallets themselves, or let's just say applications that interact with Bitcoin transactions, can do validation wherever they are in the world. So, I mean, Rafa referred to this as client-side signing, but also client-side verification of transactions. So devices that can, and devices could be a browser or a mobile or whatever, they should be able to validate transactions where they stand. And this is part of SPV. So that when that device receives a transaction, it can validate it prior to any propagation to whether it be an overlay or the Bitcoin node network itself. So that very exciting developments there. We're replicating that success in Go as we speak with another team. And that is the headline news from my perspective of what we've been working on over this last quarter. All that's been a great success. Overlay node project, or the overlays project, is really just starting. So there'll be more on that. There were some questions in the chat there about that. There'll be more on that in future updates. It's really just in its nascent. I mean, although overlays exist in the wild today, the sort of generic open source version of these things we haven't released yet, but we do intend to in coming quarters.
Thank you so much for that inspiring vision. Yes?
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I was going to say, thanks, Brett.
My pleasure. Yeah, and you mentioned questions in the chat. So just a reminder to all that if you have a question, please put it in the chat. And we are going to move on to our global public policy update. The global public sector update. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Nicholas Wellinger, for those of you who don't know me. I know that you're used to see Brian's nice face whenever public policy pops up or public affairs pop up. As you can see on the picture, we've been busy cloning Brian to the best of our abilities in the last 6 months, roughly. All the different versions of Brian came out a little bit different, different geographic regions. We're still working on getting everyone up to speed to be as knowledgeable as Brian, but he's doing a great job there. So yeah, as you can see, the whole public affairs, we don't call it public policy anymore because it's a lot more. What we're doing here is educating the public and developing together with the public sectors projects for the public good. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the faces that you're going to see more often in the future. So it's myself who is leading these efforts, but basically I'm just trying to make sure that everybody who is a lot more knowledgeable than me in the slide deck here, that they have what they need. And I just want to quickly introduce who these people are, and then you will hear from Brian on a more content-related topic in a minute. First of all, Brian Doherty, everyone knows him, everyone loves him. He has direct US support now from a young man called Alexander Mann. He's also supported by Cozen, our advisory company in the US. In the Europe geographic region, we have two people that all of you know, Martin and Patrick, who are supported by a company called Valueverse out of Brussels. They make all the connections and they basically make us understand better what's important around the EU. And we have, last but not least, since the last quarter, also Sebastian Blötznieder from nChain, who is supporting us from the UK side. And Sebastian has worked, for those of you who don't know him, for 5 years very closely with Greg Wright. And he was the one that organized that Greg Wright could speak and explain Bitcoin in front of the House of Lords in the UK Parliament. So also someone very influential and great to have on the team. He is supported by a young company called North Point Strategy that makes all the introductions for us in the UK. We work on the public relations side with Lightning Sharks, a company that is well known in the ecosystem under the new guidance of John Reed. And we have just started a partnership with Hotwire, a very hot global tech PR firm, in order to make sure that what we have to say and what is perceived by the public match. So that's it. I just want to basically say one highlight that we have achieved on the UK, because nobody from the UK is here on the call today. We all know London Blockchain Conference. All I can tell you right now, because of the connections we've made, we have a super interesting speaker lineup coming towards May. And there are interesting speakers also from the political stage in the UK that will join us. So that's all for now. Handing over to Brian. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Nico. And I wanted to highlight some of our fourth quarter successes. And I think one of the biggest successes that we're building on this foundation of is the 7 virtues. And we found 7 key virtues that we've identified that really and truly encapsulate the essence and advantage of the BSV blockchain, which sets it apart from the competitive landscape that we face. And just kind of highlighting a few of these. Firstly, market integrity. This is at the forefront of our efforts. We've designed BSV seamlessly to integrate with existing regulatory frameworks. This is crucial for widespread adoption and lawful operations, and this alignment and with regulations basically ensures that our blockchain can be trusted by businesses and governments alike. Financial stability is another cornerstone. Our blockchain boasts high transaction throughput and ultra low fees. This economic model encourages the sustainable business practices and innovation, moving away from the more speculative practices that we have seen that have been characterized by other, say, cryptocurrencies. The growth generating tech efficiency we offer is something I'm super proud of. BSV offers, lowers the barrier to entry, basically allowing more people to participate in this global economy. And by reducing friction, we're not just a blockchain, we're a catalyst for economic growth and competitiveness. Consumer protection, this is a virtue we all hold dear. The BSV blockchain enhances the security of privacy of transactions and providing tamper-proof ledger that's essential in today's digital age. This builds trust among users, knowing that transactions are secure with their privacy is safeguarded. And our infrastructure resilience is also a testament to the robustness of BSV. By setting our protocol in stone, we offer a stable foundation for developers, ensuring that applications built on BSV are reliable and consistent, which is crucial for long-term projects and real economic viability. Data integrity, as many of you know, is something that is very near and dear to my heart. This is critical. It's especially as we delve into areas like AI and IoT, with our proof of work consensus mechanism designed to really reward honesty and deter malicious activities. This ensures that data on BSV is accurate and trustworthy. And just lastly, energy efficiency, which is also near and dear to my heart. This is a virtue that really addresses one of the most significant criticisms of blockchain technology in general. And our scalable network, as we've heard from the utilization and ecosystem teams, architecture allows for millions of transactions per second with, a very minimal carbon footprint. This efficiency doesn't come at the expense of data integrity and making BSV, a leader in sustainable blockchain technology. But in summary, these, 7 virtues are not only define our technology, but our mission to offer blockchain that's ready for global adoption. We use these as a filter as we approach our public affairs efforts. And you will be probably seeing more about this very near in the future. And then just a couple other real quick highlights. Our Capitol Hill Demo Day is scheduled for March 13th. That's this year, where we'll be demonstrating about 4 to 5 BSV ecosystem applications in Capitol Hill, where not only U.S. representatives and policymakers and staffers can come touch, taste and feel these technologies, but really get a real good sense of the utility, the utility applications that are already available today. As I've shared before, many policymakers look at, the impact that this technology will have, 7 to 10 to 15 years down the road. And thankfully, from the hard work of everybody within this BSV ecosystem, we're making sure and chomping at the bit every day to make sure that we can bring a global enterprise utility infrastructure. And then just finally, the very diligent and hardworking European team, Patrick, Marcin, as well as Nico, participated in getting proof of work included in the EU sustainability tender. And that is, key, because if they're not looking at proof of work, there's more of a likelihood that they're wanting to look for more sustainable consensus mechanisms. And as we know, with unbounded block size and ultra low fees, that the BSV blockchain can scale beyond, well beyond what blockchain offers today. And with that, I'll give you back a couple minutes and appreciate your attention. And if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Siggy, one of the Oscarson brothers that we are collecting over here. So Siggy, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I think we ran out of Oscarson brothers. I think they're all here, so that's no more to add. Thank you. Yeah, I want to give you a little bit of an update on what's happening in Terranode today. We have been working very hard in the background, and the reason there is not a lot coming out of the team yet is because we're just trying to get on with building Terranode. But about 2 weeks ago, there was a CoinGeek article that came out that was we thought it was time to talk a little bit about what we're doing and show you what Terranode is about. And the article is actually, so people that haven't read that article yet, I suggest you read that. It has a good explanation of how Terranode is architected, what we're doing, splitting things up into microservices and subtrees. So that's actually a very good article. But I also realize from all the Twitter conversations that happened, there was some confusion that started because of that article. And I wanted to address those today, just to get rid of those. UBSV, that's one of those things. I think there was that hashtag trended for a little bit. UBSV is the internal skunkworks name of the Terranode project. When we started the project about 9 months ago, 10 months ago, we had to create something in GitHub. And unfortunately, there was already a Terranode GitHub repo, so we had to come up with something else. I'll hurry up. So there's no changings. We've been in discussions with Craig a lot about what we can change to scale up Terranode. And we are following the white paper to a T. So there are no changes being made there. There's no changing being made to the transactions, to the protocol, to the block format. We're not forking. We're not doing anything like that. A lot of the changes that we are doing is for scalability, but they are not in any tension with the old protocol or with Bitcoin. The final name of the node implementation that we are going to be creating is Terranode. So UBSV is just an internal name. It leaked out. It shouldn't have had. So that's probably on me and the team that we've been living this for the last 10 months. So I just wanted to highlight that a little bit today. What's happening next? So we have a fairly, I think, solid implementation now of a Terranode that does 1 million transactions a second. I would almost like to say fairly easily, actually. And we are preparing to prove that to the world in our running test. The things that we've been working on over the last, I think 2 or 3 months actually, is trying to get it to work in the infrastructure that we're working in. The architecture that is described in the CoinGeek article can actually handle this easily, but the underlying infrastructure, especially networking, turns out to be a little bit of a problem. We are doing this test and this proof in AWS. I expect most miners wouldn't run in AWS, but it is what we're doing now. And AWS seems to have limits on some of the networking stuff that they have, and we are running into those. So we are actually stretching AWS to the limits. And to their credit, we're working very well with them to solve these limits and to actually get Terranode up and running. But I do believe we're causing some problems at AWS with the scale of things that we are doing. But it is going well. We regularly throw everything up there. We had an agreement with each other that we wouldn't share numbers before the actual tests. But as most of you probably seen on Twitter, Stefan and Calvin, they do not share that opinion, and they have shared lots of numbers. I can say those numbers are true. The numbers they are sharing, they're actually numbers that are coming from us. There are some disclaimers to some of those things, like just running on one node, not multiple nodes and things like that. But these are the numbers we're making, and we are getting there. And I'm pretty confident we'll solve these issues in the next couple of weeks with AWS and be able to prove to the world that this works. So that's my update, right on time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Siggy. Connor Murray. Connor's up next with Stewardship Value Stream.
Hey everyone, my Wi-Fi keeps going in and out, so I hope I don't cut out on everyone. A little bit of background on what this value stream is all about for some of you that may be hearing it for the first time. So with the association, one core principle of the BSV Association is stewardship of the Bitcoin protocol. That encompasses a number of things, but the most important one is obviously one of the core principles of BSV is that the protocol remains set in stone, and that removes any power that the association or any other central entity can have over the network itself. So in setting up this value stream, we've focused on a few things, but I'm going to talk about 3 of them today. The first is this concept of, you've probably heard, if you follow Craig on Twitter and I've read his blog posts, of this concept of a unilateral contract. In setting up Bitcoin, one of the key principles that he structured on is that it's not based solely in technical framework, but also in a legal framework and an economic framework. We have spent the past year working with a great legal team out of the UK that we're really excited to share the work on, but to establish a very clear legal framework for what terms and conditions nodes enter into when they join the network. So essentially codifying this esoteric idea of what was previously just we just called it a unilateral contract with no clear terms and conditions. We basically structured a document that outlines what the clear terms and conditions are for nodes entering the network, what their responsibilities are, which are basically just codifying the steps in the Bitcoin white paper, and making it clear what honest and dishonest behavior is, right? So we're excited to share that with everyone. We've renamed it to something called the network access rules. It seemed a little bit more clear than unilateral contract. But this is a really important step to codifying what up until now has just been rules that are out there and no one seems to have any clear idea of, and it makes it a clear-cut inked version that it's very clear to nodes what their job is when they enter the network. Alongside the network access rules, we've been developing the alert system, which is a re-implementation of what used to be called the alert key in the original BTC code back in 2011. The alert system is going to solve a number of problems for us. The first of which is we can actually tell nodes to update their software without having to contact them over Twitter or email addresses. So it'll be a direct communication channel where we can send signed alerts to the network and say, there's a new update in SV node or in the future in Terra node. It enables us to protect the network when malicious activity occurs. So mainly because BSV is a 1/100th, we have about 1/100th of the global share of SHA-256 hash rate. And we've seen it happen a couple of times over the last 5-6 years. If an external actor tries to behave dishonestly and cause problems with the chain, we have the ability to alert nodes of that activity and remove them from the network. And then also taking what was previously the digital asset recovery toolkit and moving it from a separate service that was, if you remember last year, was released under a blacklist manager toolkit. This will be encompassed in the alert system, so that way we can just sign the alerts, and any digital asset recovery alerts can be sent directly to the network. We have a bunch of materials that'll be published that'll clarify what the system is, how it works, all that kind of stuff, as well as the network access rules, and that'll all be coming out very soon this quarter. And lastly, the protocol restoration work. So two components to this. Number one, we have documentation of the Bitcoin protocol. So documenting what the Bitcoin protocol is, making it clear is a very important thing that should have been done probably 10 years ago. That'll be published this quarter. And then also the remaining bits of protocol restoration have been scoped out. And I promised some people that they would see it by the end of last year. It's ready, but we're not going to publish it until we have a clear timeline of when those changes are going to happen. And those changes will be implemented according to my friend Frank, who I'm about to turn it over to. That is all I have with 5 seconds remaining. So I'm happy to answer any questions outside of this, if anything brought some questions up. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Frank from Provisioning. Frank, take it away.
Thank you very much, Brett. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to see you all alive and well this new year. First and foremost, I'm gonna take the cue away from Siggy. We're very happy to let you know that we were able to convince another Oscarson brother to take over the role as tech lead in our value stream, which is a great enhancement. We have distinctly more horsepower, and it already shows. What we do is essentially, implement the core bits that underpins the entire network, and make sure it's up and running, and helping miners specifically, but also the colleagues in utilization value stream, but eventually also the colleagues in the Terra node project, to make it all work on the back of the actual network. As far as SV node goes, just a quick update here. We will be releasing an upgrade / a new version, as we note, that focuses mostly on security enhancements. There's also bits and pieces that are relevant to what Connor has just mentioned before, to be able to ensure that we can give the stewardship a handle to actually to do what they need to do. We're also have started to look at the node documentation. We're improving this. We're updating it. There's a few bits and pieces that I think need to be fixed. We will be pushing out recommendations for specific use cases, specifically for miners, on optimal config settings, for example, how to run it best. Also based on the experience that we've had, talking to Gorilla, working at Tal. That will gives us some good background and good pool of ideas to draw on. Yeah. And as Connor mentioned, protocol restoration. We are currently talking within the team on how to best put this on the timeline. We're pretty clear on the scope. Yeah, and I think the scope will, as Connor said, be published this quarter, and then we'll pursue the development and implementation of the respective changes over this current year. Yeah, so we have a node version that actually does reflect the original protocol that is set in stone, as Brian already mentioned a little earlier on. Another piece of work that I would like to get a bit more attention on is what we're doing in supporting the players out there, and specifically miners, but for now also all other users of specifically the node software. Please note that our Discord channel for SV Node is now being monitored 24/7. So if you have an issue, if you have a topic, if you want to discuss something, go there. It will be picked up in any time of the day, 24/7. So that's one thing. We'll plan to roll this out across the other bits and pieces, reference implementation, things like ARC, and the work that Thomas and Decken are on, to support an active discourse, but also to support in the sense of raising issues that can be tackled right away without going through random channels like. Somebody has to happen to pick up stuff on Telegram, as Brett has already done for us. Thank you for that. So go to Discord, have an issue, speak to us there. It'll help us to react much faster. Last but not least, the network. Again, that's very close to our heart. Terranode and the new network topology overlay networks will have to be implemented, and there's a number of things that need to be prepared to make that actually happen over the course of the coming month. And when I say coming month, that will be a focus for us throughout this entire year. Raising the awareness, putting support organization in place, making it all happen, ensure that documentation gets out. That people know what we're talking about, and make it tangible, yeah, and easy as possible to operate all the new fantastic services, reference implementations, and tools that we'll be bringing out. On that note, we will also put some effort in working with Connor, yeah, to get a clear understanding on our network health, i.e. we will implement the monitoring, we'll make part of this public, so nobody has to start guessing whether a testnet is up or down, whether the mainnet is just asleep. Just make sure, yes, check it out, it is there, we're live, and of course we want to have 100% uptime.
Thank you very much, Frank. And next up, we have the outreach team led by Sean Ryan, a team that I work very closely with. Sean, take it away.
Thanks, Brett. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone. Over the last quarter of last year, the outreach team had been very busy with events and conferences. This is just a snapshot of the highlights of the conferences and events that we attended. We started off the quarter with JITEX, where we had an amazing presence there, and we definitely gathered a ton of leads, and we've already started to engage some of those customers that came through our booth. Rohan did an amazing job following up after that conference and at the date conference in India, where he made many connections with government, and he signed, I think, 3 MOUs, and he's starting to engage banks with some interesting thought leadership and applications. Lise, well, to go back a little bit, just to let everyone know who kind of consists of the outreach team. You know, we have Lise Lee, who covers the China region. She is her own team over there. We have Rohan in India, who has a team of individuals there that help him with his initiatives. And then we have Marcin and myself. And then we do have a couple other people that always bring a lot of value. And one of them being Brett. He's constantly trying to see how we can push things forward, as well as, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but another gentleman out of California who joined our meetings quite often as well to put in his input. But, you know, the goal of this year is to really push forward for adoption. And some of those initiatives include joint ventures and partnerships. And one of the big time joint ventures that we've been working on for about 10 months, I've been meeting with AWS, with the Terranode team. And as we've progressed over that time period, AWS has become more and more interested. So they have requested to set up what they call an EBC, which is an executive briefing committee. And so we're in conversations right now to set up something where we can bring together the top stakeholders of AWS and the top stakeholders in the BSV to the table, so we can highlight the future opportunity for AWS to incorporate our blockchain into their stack. Another partnership we've been working closely with Slalom. They're a technology consultant, 15,000 consultants globally. I think they have locations in every country in the world. So we've been working with them on, they have a Innovation Day in Seattle where, you know, they want to focus on one use case, and that's supply chain and logistics. So we're currently strategizing with them on bringing Unisat and potentially Trace out there to highlight the use case of supply chain logistics on our blockchain. And another big project that the outreach team has been working on over the last month and a half has been the restructuring of our strategy. This year, we've been working with Alex and Laurence to build a stronger foundation for the outreach team, visualizing a more encompassing global strategy to help us obtain adoption with clear objectives. I think as we grow, we're professionalizing, and you know, we need to focus on specific industries that are going to make the most impact, and you know, really push forward with the use cases we have available, and try to get more and more meetings until we can, you know, start seeing adoption, start seeing companies actually utilizing the blockchain. That is our goal this year, is to get real enterprises to you know, start putting transactions on chain with enterprise use cases.
Thank you very much, Sean. And I just want to take a brief moment to highlight that as an NGO, you know, one of the really valuable things about Sean and his team is that he's out there doing this outreach work on your benefit, for your behalf of your business. It doesn't matter whether it's a proof of concept or you're up and running with tens of thousands of customers. You know, if you haven't booked a call with Sean and you'd like to, make sure you reach out to me. I'll make sure that a call, or Sean directly, but I'll make sure a call gets set up. And really, his mission is to ensure that there's a education about what your business is providing. So, you know, these various different businesses have different requirements. Make sure you get your requirements to Sean so that he can actually advocate for those.
And just to add on to that, Brett, you know, I have a lot of different conversations, and, you know, you really don't know what people are interested in until you start to dig in. So it's really important for me to be aware of all the use cases and applications out there. Even if it's in the earliest stages, I don't mind meeting with you to understand what you're trying to do. Because if I connect with the right people, I can, you know, make those introductions to, you know, the companies, and hopefully that conversation can move towards a path to adoption.
Yeah, and he is tireless worker in that regard. Next up, I want to switch over to education, led by Evan Freeman. Evan, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Freeman, and I'm the Director of Education at the BSVA. I just want to provide a quick overview of some of what has been going on since Q4 of last year, and some of what we have planned for 2024. In Q4 2023, we published our Bitcoin script course, which covers the concepts that underpin Bitcoin script as a language that defines how transactions may be spent. Sorry, it's a bit early here. This course is very exciting to us because our Bitcoin script course really allows us to open new doors in our quest to make knowledge available that will help the ecosystem further unlock the capabilities of Bitcoin. We also began the creation of a second master's and an undergraduate level course, which will be taught this year at a university in the Philippines. So quickly, the universities in the Philippines are beginning to adopt BSV education in their curriculum regarding blockchain and IT. We also became involved in the initiation of a webinar series with Zetli and a prestigious sports management business school focusing on integrating Web3 into the sports industry. So that webinar series is slated to start Q2 of this year. For 2024, we're looking to add at least 10 more courses, with most of these focused on developers, product releases, and organizational decision makers. 2 of the courses we are looking to release include wallet development on Bitcoin and Bitcoin application development. We will also be having more blockchain innovation programs. Our NITA blockchain innovation program cohort number 2, with approximately 30,000 expected participants, will begin next month. This is our second collaborative online learning program with the National Information Technology Development Agency of Nigeria and Dominion. For us, 2024 means more collaboration, with more of our courses being offered in universities, as well as becoming more accessible to global technology consulting firms through our new certificate program. Our hope that such collaboration can elevate BSV's status and adoption and facilitate the creation of new solutions to important issues in society. For our next town hall session, Todd Price, our Chief of Content, will provide more details on our undergraduate and graduate university programs that he has been hard at work on. And I'd like to end this briefing with a call to action. If you have a relationship with an educational institution, government or non-government organization involved in blockchain or information technology or something similar, and feel like there may exist a strong opportunity for the BSVA education team to help lead or support through our own programs or in collaboration with others, please get in touch with us or the outreach team. You can contact me directly at evan.freeman@bsvblockchain.org. I know, some of the earlier sessions went a little bit longer, so I'll end it here for you all. Thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your day or evening.
Thank you so much. And next up from the marketing team, the growth team, we have Martin Coxell. Martin, please take it away.
Okay, thanks, Brett. I will also try to keep this brief since this call's gone a little over time. 4 main things I want to talk about today. Obviously, beginning of a new year, we're looking back at the performance we've had over the past year. I've added a few stats that you might want to look at, but I'll skip through this section to move on to the more juicy pieces. If you have questions about performance-related marketing and performance-related topics, feel free to email us at the 2 addresses which Brett shared earlier. So on the community side, I think the main talking point is the fact that we're launching our ambassador program. We've been very active over the past quarter, most of 2023, and having a series of ambassador-led events throughout a few different regions in mostly in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. These are referenced here, and you can find them at the URL I mentioned there. Moving on down to different types of content marketing that we've been focusing on. We've obviously, one of the main remits of most of our marketing programs is to onboard new users into our ecosystem. And we have a few examples here of different ebooks which have been created and published by our content team, which is led by Lizette Lowe. if you don't know her. Some of these will have obviously involved the participation of other permanent ecosystem contributors, to name but a few. I think Smart Ledger, Gerda Paul Tal have contributed, for example, to the first one on minor economics. And last but not least, it's been mentioned already, but we are plotting a very ambitious roadmap for growth and marketing in 2024. Events is obviously a cornerstone to it, as always. We've had a few events in the past in the past couple of weeks, but there'll be many more in the rest of the year. We had about 15 different events last year, so roughly 3 every 2 months. The next big flagship event for us is going to be the London Blockchain Conference, which was mentioned earlier. We are preparing a heavy investment for BSV on that one, but there will be other obviously flagship engagements throughout the rest of the year, which we'll be communicating on that. And for that, if you want any other information, you can go to the URL that's listed on screen. And I think I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Martin. I want to thank everyone for such an amazing presentation. It's humbling to present such esteemed colleagues working on a mission that I believe so much in. I want to take a brief moment just to mention 2 things that are crucial to BSV Bitcoin's security model, which is scalability and being public. So the scalability side, that was the bulk of what we just discussed today. But the important part, another really important part that maybe sometimes goes unnoticed, is being public. That's so vital to the security model of Bitcoin, and especially as we are stepping into this role of rebuilding the global financial infrastructure. It's important for us as an association, and me leading this presentation as an example of that we also invite that onto ourselves with a more public presentation of our efforts, and so that we can invite the multitude of perspectives to be able to review what's going on and to be able to educate. Importantly, we are all those people that have traveled this journey from knowing nothing to now having a firm grasp and building in this economy. So it's important for us to make sure that the other members of the community and our loyal viewers, our loyal listeners, all have those resources that they require to be able to get involved with this network and to help it to grow into what we know that it's capable of. So with that being said, I want to turn the floor over for some questions and answers. As well, you can use the Discord to present any questions and answers, or sorry, any questions if you don't feel comfortable asking them on camera today. With that being said, feel free to raise your hand. All right, we are just a few minutes from the scheduled close of this. I do believe that in the future for a town hall, I'd like to schedule some open brainstorming sessions to follow this, because I am so, inspired when I conclude these types of events that I think inviting our community members to just openly brainstorm with us, I think is a great idea. But floor is available for anyone to share their thoughts or questions here. And if we have nothing, we're happy to conclude our inaugural town hall. We're even a little bit early, and to carry the conversation. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hey, Brett. So there's a chat going on in the text box between Lynn and Degan and a couple of people about overlay node and overlay networks and token scalability, which is a conversation that comes up every time people talk about the next gen stuff. In fact, I think this has happened once a year for the last 5 years. Like, what's going to happen to my tokens? So We don't have to answer it now, but it might be a good module to put into the next one to kind of discuss those kind of things, like your sort of second level or second order effects of the new software. Similar, not that Jake or Siggy didn't address some of these things, but that might be a good module to put into the next town hall. So I just wanted to float that.
Definitely a great idea. We're still having internal conversations on the overlay front, specifically addressing the sort of token use case as well. That's in very early stage in terms of the internal project. So although I refer to existing stuff that's out there, that's not like from us or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But definitely something worth talking about. Clearly, there's interest.
Yeah, suggestion taken, Kurt. As always, thank you very much. We'll take you up on this.
For sure.
Yes, and we did have a question that came in from Samir. Thank you, Samir. So what is an update on implementation or applications that have made use of SPV? Darren, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we are sort of very, very close to the release of SPV wallet that Thomas mentioned. We have extensive documentation on that, and it's just a question of final review and release. We're targeting February. I want to pass over to Thomas, who can corroborate exactly what our sort of dates are for release.
The date, so we are finalizing some testing phase with two external companies because we are discussing with regulated exchanges in Japan to have them use this SPV open source wallet. So that's why we need to make sure that it's properly tested before release. So yeah, it should be in the coming weeks, and then happy to gather any feedbacks. Because that was a feedback that we received from exchanges. They were not very comfortable with the Light Client toolbox because the set of separate components didn't make sense. That's why we implemented everything into a wallet reference implementation. Then it's quite simple, and Degen and the 4chain team worked heavily to facilitate the integration with AWS. So that should be the wallet reference implementation to follow, and to make sure that other wallet providers might, if they want, to use some of the shared open source component, but obviously they will have also the ability to run their own technical architecture if they want, as soon as it's aligned with the concept of SPV. That's fine, right? So that's the idea.
Three more things to mention. Thanks, Thomas. Three more things to mention quickly. Jeff has mentioned Project Babbage. Yeah, absolutely. We've been working with Project Babbage for the TypeScript SDK. So the libraries themselves are implementing SPV verification within the sort of functionality of deserialization of transactions, for example, and running all of the verification steps within the library component. So anyone building applications can use those libraries as soon as they're released, which is going to be very soon. My next meeting, which is now, is setting up an AWS seller profile. So the SPV wallet after that will be available on the AWS market to sort of one-click deploy kind of thing. Which hopefully will encourage people to at least test it out and potentially develop from there applications that make use of the SPV implementation that will be available there. And there was one more thing, but I can't remember what it is. But thanks for your question.
Excellent. Yeah, and if we don't have any other questions, I want to take this opportunity just to invite you, first of all, to our next town hall. And in addition to the next town hall, I want to invite you to the London Blockchain Conference. So yeah, I would love for you to reach out to me, and if you're planning to attend, so that we can coordinate and get together about that. With that being said, I want to thank everyone for the time, for the excellent presentation. I want to thank my colleagues, Sylvia, who helped me prepare and present this, as well as HandCash for being our guest presenter today. And I want to thank all of our speakers today, from the various different value streams for presenting this extremely exciting and innovative task. And I want to thank you, our loyal listeners, our loyal viewers, for helping this this progress along by educating both yourselves and others about what is truly capable with BSV blockchain. Thank you very much, and we will have this recording available on our public channels for anyone that maybe missed a portion of it. So until then, see you at the next one.